My name is Peter Cassimatis. I was born in the island of Kythera in 1931 to a family of 5 children, and grew up during the war, which was very hard. I went part-time in the high school because of the war and the hard times. And 1949, I came to Australia. I came here as a refugee because at that time in 1949 in Greece was civil war, and every parent wanted to push the children out of the country to have a better time in another country. And I was lucky I had an uncle here who nominated me, and he paid my fare, which was very big sum at that time, £290. You could buy a home in Australia. I arrived here, and my uncle received him, which I'm very thankful to him. And gradually I started to get jobs in Greek-owned establishments like milk bar, cafes, and try to earn money to pay my uncle back, which wasn't given to me. I had to pay it back. After 5 years, life working in the cafes wasn't easy. It was long hours, and from 7 days a week, it wasn't for me. So I decided to get out of the cafe business and stuff, and I finished up going to Biloela, picking up cotton. And that was hard work. You had to work from 6 o'clock in the morning till 6 in the evening, bending down and picking up cotton. And that lasted 1 season, and then I looked for bigger things. I went to sugar cane up at North Queensland, and I worked at the cane fields as a cane cutter for 5 seasons. And in the off season, no holiday, I used to work in the hydroelectric project, where was a lot of migrants, Greek and Italian, and that's how I saved my money, to push myself to save money to get, when I get married, to have some money to buy a home. In 1959, beginning of 60, I came to Brisbane, and in partnership with my brother, we bought a fish shop. And when I'm saying fish shop, fresh fish, wet fish, they say. And that was hard work because we had to attend the markets 5 o'clock in the morning and get the product back to the shop, freeze it and display it. And I did a couple shops like that. Had at Valley, at Indooroopilly, Carindale, and Cannon Hill was my last shop. Life was going on. My kids grew up, educated, they got jobs, and I retired at the age of 65, but I still did part-time work for 10 years. When I was 75 years old, my shoulders gave up and I had to retire. And life goes on good. And then I lost my wife after 57 years marriage. And that set me back a lot. But I survived with my children around me. And life goes on. I'm 90 years old, and I haven't got millions, but I've got my children, my grandchildren, my great-grandchildren, which make me happy. Yeah, my wife, Maria, we were married for 57 years, and we had good life. We got married in 1959, and the priest who married us was Father Gregory Sacchelario, a change of St. George at Charles Street. When I got married, I was 29 years old, and my wife was 21. I've got three children: Zachariah, Zach, Katerina, and Helen. I've got 6 grandchildren: Panayoti, Despina, and Marisa, my son's children. My daughter Katerina has 2 children from my older daughter, Marisa and Anastasia, and I got one from my daughter Helen, Theo. My reason to leave Greece was the war. We see, the war has devastated my country. The little island where I came from, there was no work. There was nothing to do. And because I had an uncle here, he helped me he nominated me to come to Australia, you see. Because there was civil war in Greece, the ocean liners couldn't berth in Piraeus. So I flew by plane from Athens to Cairo, Egypt. And from then I got a boat and came to Australia. It took 28 days. The name of the boat, Sorrento. I was 18 years old when I left Greece. Those days in the ship where I was a lot of young people, but it was a mix of Italians and Greek. It was the beginning of the mass migration from Europe. So I was one of those migrants, yes. Kythera, my island is Kythera, is between Peloponnese and Crete, and it's a little island, rocky, and can sustain some people, but people been migrating from Kythera since back 1870. The war, my memories were the war. The planes were flying when I was about 9, flying over Kythera to supply German aeroplanes. They're flying to Africa to supply the German army, and they fly over Kythera, my island, every day, for months. I even remember when they bombarded Crete, the group of aeroplanes, about 40 bombers, passed over us, and they went to Crete, bomb, and after the bombing, the planes that carried the army came behind them, and they landed, dropping the parachutes in Crete. There was skirmish between the local guerrillas, so Kythera and the Germans, and the firing one another. In my village was about 500 meters from the action, and with kids, it would sneak out to see what's going on, and bang, bang, the bullets flew past, they hit the wall and the building that was sheltering, you see, yes. And that scared us to death. And my good old mom, she had 1 year old brother of mine, and she carried on her cuña, on her back. And we went with some galleys and we went finish up with my auntie and another village where near us to get away from the fighting, you see. My father was Zacharias Cassimatis, and my mother was Maria. Her very maiden name was Veneri. Yeah. And they both became orphans when they were about 10, 12 years old. My grandfather died in the last flu epidemic in Europe. A Spanish flu, yes. And my mother, her mother tried to save a little girl. My mother's sister tried to save her. She had fallen in a well and tried to save her, and she jumped with the clothes into the well. She got a little girl out, but she got cold from the cold water, and she finished up with TB and died. And my mother went and worked as a domestic in another part of Greece, Evia, but she was about 12 years old. We had some funny people, kind cutters, Greeks from different parts of Greece. Anyway, the farmer brought us mallet to have mallet for change because we never had mallet. Anyway, each one of us in 10 will cook every day. And anyway, the cook cut the fish in half and boil them. And he served the juice with the soup, and then the fish was in a big platter. And this fellow from Ethiopia, nice boy, Peloponnese, Aris, somehow he got to ice, he picked up the fish from the head part, which was more flesh, you see. And this man from Macedonia, Spiros, «Ρε Άρη, σε βλέπω και παίρνεις την ουρά κάθε φορά». Πειράζει που τα λέω στο κανένα. Oh, Aris gets up, Παναγίδος. We got in between them, they're going to kill one another. That's, I'm saying what we have to put up with, you see, in the kind fields, yeah. Because hard work and you get stressed, When I was a little boy, my father, we were very poor, as I told you before. He had a little cane and put string on the end of it and we fish, we catch little fish. But then, when I came to Australia, in North Queensland, while I was working in the sugar mill, I contacted ringworms. You know what that is? Yeah. And the boss said, you got to stop work, Peter, because it's contagious. And I had 2-3 weeks off. And at the boarding house where I stayed was a young fellow there, about the same age as me, Luke. And he was bored, and he said, Peter, Well, come on, we go fishing. And we went the Johnson River. We went down the Johnson River and ran along the bank. And matter of fact, we were stepping on mussels on the mud, you know? And we picked up a few mussels. And we went further down, was a little creek. That time was floods in Erinsfeld. And the water of the Johnson River was real dark. But there was a little creek coming into the river, crystal clear water. And there was two Chinese, and they're fishing barramundi. And they're catching barramundi. And they told us, they showed us what hooks to use. And they said, go down the river in the jetty, there's a lot of weeds. Shake up the weeds, and you see little prawns coming out. And we packed, and that prawn was the best bite. The next day we got a couple of rods, and we got 10 barramundi the first day with my friend Lucky. And then when 2 days, nine the next day, and then they disappear because the water changed, you know, I don't know why. And that's how it started, you see. My cousin organized trips from Sydney, and I was close to him, and he said to me, come on, Peter, you come a fishing trip at Swine's Reef. Anyway, at that time, I was busy at the shops, and I owned the holiday. And we went up Swine's Reef. I'm the odd person from Brisbane, and all the others from Sydney. And from Glaston was 14 hours. And it's very rough at times, but we used to have a good boat. And my cousin, he said, Peter, no smoking in the boat. And I used to smoke, and I had cigarettes all over the shop, and I said, good idea. I left my cigarettes here, and I never smoked since. That was 1990, yeah. I never smoked since, yes. And yeah, and that was the fish, you know. But here I started with a little boat, and I had a Kubaro here, and Kubaro, come on, Kubaro, go fishing. And I got the bug going fishing in the bay here, you see. And I bought my little boat, and I bought a bigger boat. And that bigger boat, I got shipwrecked one night. I was at Mud Island, and a big storm came up, and instead of, I've been foolish, instead of shifting, go to a shelter spot, I stayed there, and the storm came and lift my anchor, and I'm running on the ground. And I sort of panicked. I wasn't in danger, but I panicked. In an EPIRB, if you ever heard, that electronic gadget sends signals from here to Canberra, and in turn, Canberra sends signals. And the helicopter came after 2 hours, and they picked me up. They got me to the hospital, and they brought a stretcher, and I'll give you a funny one. And I was walking, I wasn't bad, and this head nurse said, come on, Peter, get on the stretcher. I said, I'm all right. Do as I tell you. And I got on the stretcher. And the doctors came all over me, you know, when I arrived. In 2 hours I was at the hospital, yes. But that was a bit of drama, but you know, yes. My biggest fish is 28 kilo mackerel at the Swine's Reef. My garden, I used to be very good, very good manure with my lower back, but I used to grow cucumbers, melanzanas, all the way, give them to my family, but now I can't. Life, I couldn't say it's a good life because I'm suffering from it. But I survive with my children, grandchildren, grandchildren. My granddaughter brings me the little grandchildren here, Papu, and brings me back to life, yeah.